don't serve dry meatballs at your game day party, I'm going to talk to you about my secrets for making the perfect juicy meatballs with lots of different varieties of flavors. Check this out. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Barbecue Tips Podcast. I'm your host, Christie Vanover. I'm a champion pitmaster, cookbook author, the girl behind one of America's top barbecue websites, girlscangrill.com, and I was a contestant on Food Network's Barbecue Brawl. I'm here to bring you some quick barbecue tips to help you up your barbecue game. And speaking about games, this week's podcast is all about being prepared for your game day party. There are so many different appetizers you can make, but we're going to focus on one key appetizer that can be made multiple ways that just about everybody loves. But before we get into that, what does it take to make an awesome Super Bowl championship team? Obviously, good coaches, good players, fair refs. But you know what one of the number one things is that coach has an awesome playbook. And that's why I want to talk to you guys about my playbooks real quick. If you want to win on the competition circuit, you've got to grab these. I've got the Competition Barbecue Scorebook. This is for all you KCBS cooks out there. I've also got the State Cook-Off Scorebook. This is for all of you who are competing on the SCA circuit. Inside of each of these, you're able to put down your scores, information about the cook that you did. That way, when it's time to go to another competition, you flip through this book and you look at what you did that scored, that placed, that got you that call, so you can go back and you can repeat that over and over. So just like football, you got to have a good playbook so you can keep track of those scores, those plays that work really well for you. So make sure you guys go to Amazon and pick up copies of these. They're only $9.99. I will include a link in my description so you can grab them. And while you're on Amazon, don't forget, you can also get my holiday grilling cookbook and my barbecue rubs. I've got brisket, chicken, and pork. That brisket is great on all things beef. Chicken is perfect for chicken, but it's also super yummy on vegetables. And the pork, of course, was made for pork butt, pork ribs, all things pork, but it's also delicious on seafood and shrimp. One more thing before we get started. For those of you watching on YouTube, I want to know, what do you think of my new setup? All I did was change a little bit of paint on the background. I adjusted the lighting in my studio. I used to have this harsh light coming through a window. I put up some blackout curtains, and I think it's really kind of made a cooler vibe. If you're listening on the podcast, be sure to head on over to YouTube. Just look for Girls Can Grill, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I hope you guys like it. If you do have questions about my whole video studio setup, I'm happy to answer those in addition to all your questions about barbecue. There are so many people starting podcasts now, and I kind of learned the hard way from researching so many different people and non-barbecue people, just all sorts of people trying to get the right hints and the right tips for the best audio, for the best lighting, for the best studio setup. So happy to share those tips if you guys are interested in shooting more videos or starting your own podcast. All right, let's get into this game day food. So today I'm going to focus on one particular party food that so many people love for game day, and that is meatballs. The reason I want to talk about meatballs on its own is because meatballs can either be delicious or kind of dry little balls of failure. We're not going to make those dry balls of failure. Nope, we are going to make delicious meatballs. And there's a few things I want to talk to you about that help make the perfect juicy meatball. Plus, you can make them with all sorts of different flavor profiles, so your party's not going to be boring with just one type of meatball. The first ingredient in any meatball is, of course, meat. And when it comes to making meatballs, I like to do a blend of ground beef and ground pork. You have a couple options. You can just buy them at the grocery store already ground, or if you do competition barbecue like I do, you likely have a lot of brisket trimmings, a lot of pork or rib trimmings. You can grind those up yourself and make your own ground meat and meat combination for your meatballs. When you are looking for ground beef, I like to choose 80-20 beef. What that means is 80% of the grind is meat and 20% of the grind is fat. Why that's important is because when you're eating a meatball, if you're eating just lean meat, it's not going to be as juicy, and when you introduce it to that heat, it has a tendency that it can dry out. When it comes to ground pork, it's not going to usually say the percentage of fat it is. It's usually just ground pork, but that's okay. If you mix that with your ground beef, for me anyway, it turns out a perfect combination. Now, if you don't eat pork or you don't eat beef, that's fine. You can just do one type of meat. You don't have to do the combo. I just like the flavor of the combo a little bit better. Now, when I make meatballs, I do not add eggs. I just don't like the consistency of egg and what that does in the meat. Instead, I use a combination of milk and panko breadcrumbs. You can use regular breadcrumbs too. I just always have panko in the pantry, so that's the kind that I use. What you're gonna do is add the milk into a large bowl along with the breadcrumbs. Now the breadcrumbs start out hard. Once they soak in that milk for about 5 minutes, they're not gonna be crunchy anymore. They're gonna get reconstituted and they're gonna be really soft, like softer than a fresh slice of bread. Then once it's at that point, again, just 5 minutes, you'll put all of your ground meat into the bowl and mix it up. I do find the best way to mix it all is with your hands. So I just wear my Orange Gloveworks nitrile gloves, give them all a stir until it's nice and well and blended. Then this is where the diversity of flavors comes in. This is the time that you add any spices, seasonings, herbs, garlic, onions, parsley, whatever you want to your meatball mixture. I usually use about 1 to 2 teaspoons of seasoning per pound of meat. So when I make meatballs, I like to use a pound of ground beef and a pound of pork. And then I usually do like 2 to 3 teaspoons of seasoning. Or if you want, you can just do a tablespoon. That is 3 teaspoons combined. So like all the time I will throw in like a tablespoon of my pork rub or a tablespoon of my brisket rub, and that makes perfect meatballs. If you want to add fresh ingredients, go ahead and mince up some garlic and add that in there. Fresh parsley is also delicious. But here's where I want you to think about the flavor profile that you want to go with. You could do an Asian style meatball. You could do a barbecue, traditional barbecue flavor. You could go a little bit Latin. That's where the flavors and the seasonings are going to come in. So if you want to do like a Latin meatball as an example, you could use some of my brisket rub along with some taco seasoning and then some garlic and maybe even some cilantro or jalapeno. If you want to do like Italian meatballs, just use like Italian seasoning along with some salt and some pepper, and parsley is great in there, oregano is great in there, and definitely garlic with Italian meatballs. That goes wonderful. If you want to do an Asian style meatball, mix in some fresh ginger, some fresh garlic, maybe a little splash of soy sauce. Just think of those different flavor profiles and add that to your meat. Now, before you go take these meatballs out to the grill, I want you to taste that meatball mixture. So just pinch off a piece of it and throw it in a skillet on your stove and just kind of brown it up just till it's cooked through. Don't worry about like forming it into a meatball. You just want to taste that meat combination. Once it's cooked through, then give it a taste. Then from there, you can decide, does it need more salt, more pepper, more garlic? Whatever flavor profile you're trying to hit, you can adjust the seasonings now before you make like 24 meatballs and you're like, darn, I wish I added a little bit of more of X, Y, or Z. So go ahead and taste that meatball mixture first. Once that flavor is on lock, go ahead and just roll your meatballs up into balls. I usually do like a golf ball or ping pong size, which is about like an inch and a half. And from 2 pounds of meat, you'll get 24 meatballs. If you're just doing like 1 pound of ground beef or 1 pound of pork and you didn't do the combo, you'll get about 12 meatballs that size. Then don't grill them yet. I want you to put them on a pan in the refrigerator. This is really important. We've been working with the meat, we've been mixing it a lot, which means the fat has already started to melt. Well, we want to re-chill that fat because if it's too melted, once it hits the grill, all of that fat's just going to continue to melt and it's just going to drip onto your burners and, drip down into the grill, and you're going to lose that flavor and you're going to lose that moisture. So if you put it into the fridge and let it chill, those fats are going to solidify a little bit more. So when you take it out to the grill, when they melt again, they're going to melt into the meat instead of out of the meatball. And while it's chilling is a perfect time to preheat your grill. So I set my grill up to 300 degrees with an indirect heat zone. So charcoal, you're going to have the coals to one side and then an empty side of the grill grate with no coals underneath. Pellet grill, just turn it on to 300. Other styles of charcoal grills like a Big Green Egg or Kamado, you're going to want to use the diffuser plate and adjust your vents to 300. With the Masterbuilt like gravity fed series, you can just set it to 300. What am I missing? Gas grill. Gas grill, you're going to want to do indirect heat also. So like one burner on and then adjust it until the side without the burner on is going to be around 300. If you guys have questions about different styles of charcoal grills, be sure to check out my podcast from last week because I talk all about the varieties of charcoal grills, which ones are my favorite, which ones are really fun to cook on. So be sure to check that out. Now, if you want to make your meatballs in advance, that's a great idea because it'll save you time on the actual game day. So what I like to do is form all the meatballs up like a day, maybe 2 days in advance, not much more than that, and then just keep them covered in the refrigerator or like put them in a big gallon-sized zip top bag, store those in the refrigerator, and then grill them the day of the party. I do recommend that if you're going to make them in advance, you make them in advance to the raw point. Don't like cook them and then refrigerate them because they just won't be as juicy when you reheat them because you're going to introduce more heat and you're going to lose more fat. So if you want to pre-make stuff, just do the rolling them in a ball stage and save the grilling for game day. Now, once your grill is all heated up, all you're going to do is take those meatballs straight out of the fridge, put them right on your barbecue. Again, over indirect heat. I like to cook them for about 30 minutes. Sometimes I'll flip them throughout the cook and just kind of give them a peek. And then after 30 minutes is when you can baste them with sauce. I baste them, I let them cook for another 15 minutes. I check on them, kind of rotate them around, baste them again, and cook them for about another 15 minutes. It's going to take 45 minutes to an hour at a temperature of 300 degrees for them to reach the proper internal temperature. And the USDA recommends for ground meat that you cook it to 165 degrees Fahrenheit. When it comes to smoking your meatballs, just just choose a sauce that complements the flavor of the spices that you used. So for instance, if you're doing like a regular smoked barbecue meatball, you can use any type of like Kansas City style barbecue sauce. If you're doing Asian meatballs, change things up and do like a Japanese barbecue sauce or a hoisin sauce. And if you decided to go Latin, you could mix things up with maybe some kind of a chipotle barbecue sauce. Then you just pull those bad boys right off the grill, put them on a platter. I like to garnish them with a little bit of fresh herbs just for a pop of color, and then just serve them with the toothpicks or small little forks, and the party is ready to go. And if you had extra meatballs in the fridge, you can just kind of keep rotating those out and cooking more as you need to. Now that you've mastered the art of basic meatballs, let's talk about some variations that you can do in addition to just changing the flavor. One of my favorite things is cheese stuffed meatballs. So all you're gonna do is get some cheese. I personally love to use Oaxaca cheese. It's spelled Oaxaca. I think I spelled that right. You can look that up, but it's a Mexican style cheese and it melts so amazingly. If you can't find that near you, then just use like a Monterey Jack. That works really well. You could also use cheddar, but I just prefer the white cheeses with my meatballs. Personal preference, totally up to you. But you're gonna cut the cheese, the hard cheese, into like 1/2-inch cubes. And then when you make your meatball, you're gonna kind of flatten it out and set the cube in the middle and then wrap that meat around the cube until it's fully sealed. And again, you want to refrigerate it for 30 minutes. You want that cheese nice and cold, and you want the meat nice and cold. Then when you grill it, just really, really keep an eye on it. If you start to see cheese kind of oozing out of part of the meatball, get in there and flip them. They're not all going to ooze the same, and that's okay. Just kind of keep an eye on them and just flip them so that the cheese stays on top. If it's dripping out the bottom, flip that meatball over, so again, the cheese is on top and so it's not dripping out of the bottom. So it takes a little bit more finesse, but once you have those and they're hot off the grill, they just like create the best cheese pull and they are so delicious. Now, another fun type of meatball is a shrimp meatball. I know, totally wild, totally different, but it adds some nice variation to your game day party. So when I make shrimp meatballs, to make them nice and moist, because there's not a lot of fat in shrimp, I actually add bacon. So I take my shrimp and I throw it in a food processor until it's ground up, and I take bacon and I actually partially cook it for about 15 minutes in the oven. You don't want it to be crispy, but you just want it cooked a little bit, because if you put raw bacon in with the shrimp cooks so fast that the bacon won't cook all the way through. So grind up your shrimp, pre-cook that bacon, grind that up in the food processor. Then you're gonna wanna add some veggies. I like jalapeno or poblano peppers. I like a little bit of red onion and some garlic. Mince all that up. Then you're gonna form your meatball. No need for the breadcrumbs and the milk with this because shrimp is just so moist, you don't need to add all of that. But shape it up. Do make sure to refrigerate it again because shrimp is so soft, it just kind of needs to cool a little bit to get hard again. And then it only takes like 10 minutes or less to grill these meatballs. Shrimp cooks so fast. So you're gonna take them out, throw them over that indirect heat on your grill, and cook them for like 3 to 4, maybe 5 minutes per side. With seafood, you want it cooked to an internal temp of 145 degrees. I don't usually sauce these while they're on the grill, but I love to serve them with like a garlic lime aioli. I'll be sure to include the recipe for that as well in the show notes. Now, if you don't have the time or the desire to make homemade meatballs, I've got a way that you can doctor up frozen meatballs to make them really good. You're gonna buy the frozen meatballs, and then you're gonna take slices of bacon and just cut those in half and wrap the bacon around the frozen meatballs. So they're not homemade, they're just kind of semi-homemade. Still go ahead and throw them in the refrigerator while you heat your grill, and then when you're ready, throw them on the grill, indirect heat. Again, cook them for about 30 minutes, kind of turning them occasionally so that bacon gets nice and crispy and a little bit even, and then baste them with your favorite barbecue sauce and just follow the same steps that I talked about before. That's it, guys. Super easy. I'm excited to see what kind of meatball combinations that you whip up, what kind of meat blends, like maybe you're a hunter, you've got some venison, maybe you've got some bison and you're gonna mix that in there. I mean, the opportunities are really, really endless. And to me, meatballs are better than meatloaf and they're just so poppable. So they are perfect for game day. One more thing I want to highlight before I close things out. You guys may or may not have heard of an app and a website called LTK. LTK is this really cool shopping platform where people like myself can kind of highlight what we're using, what we're showing. Like if you're interested in these bookshelves or things like that, people are asking like, where did you get that? I like that. I want to put that in my house. Or what barbecue tools are you using? Where can I find that? Well, that's what LTK is. It's an app that just shows you like what's in my background and what I'm using and where you can decide if you want to purchase interested or not. Like whether it's Amazon or Target or Walmart, they have like, I don't know, 1,000 stores where you can buy different things. So you guys should definitely check out LTK. My handle is Girls Can Grill, obviously. And then if you go to my storefront, you'll be able to see like the different things, like the shirt that I wear, my Adidas shoes, just fun stuff like that. So be sure to go to LTK, look for Girls Can Grill. I'll put a link in the show notes and you can check things out. If you do decide to make a purchase, thank you. I appreciate you so much. I do make a tiny commission off of all the sales, and that revenue helps to fund Girls Can Grill so I can do more cool barbecue tips podcasts and other exciting things. So please check that out. I'm going to try to add stuff like daily or every other day so you can just see all the cool barbecue gear that's out there and the way that I style my outdoor kitchen. I think that's a wrap for today, guys. I hope you have an amazing Super Bowl party. I will include those meatball recipes. I'll also include my chicken wing guide so you guys can check out some of my variety of chicken wing recipes and a link to the 20 different Super Bowl recipes that I have which have the wings, the meatballs, the dips, all sorts of stuff so that your party is going to be on lock. Thank you guys as always. Please visit girlscangrill.com for hundreds of recipes and thousands of barbecue tips. Follow me on all the socials at Girls Can Grill. Until next time, guys, enjoy the game and happy grilling.